Professor, thank you so much for joining us. So the President says those 30 days are not to review the step-aside rule. What do you think Ace Magashule will do? Do you think he'll step aside or fight? And how would he fight? What could he fight?
Well, it's very difficult to predict when it comes to Ace Magashule, but one thing that one can predict is definitely he is reflecting, he's taking the time to reflect because you've got 30 days. Initially, the NEC agreed on 7 days, but there was a strong pushback from the Ace Magashule supporters, and that's why they've got 30 days. He's definitely going to come back with another uppercut, which will lead once again to the implosion of the African National Congress, because it seems as if Ace Magashule up until this far is definitely having an upper hand, although for the past 2 weeks it seems as if finally we're seeing the strong character of the so-called Cyril Ramaphosa camp within the African National Congress.
Yeah, as you said, it does seem that Cyril Ramaphosa has the upper hand at this point. Ace Magashule has often said, though, that this is a decision that to force him to step aside is something that only the branches can make. Now, my understanding from the court ruling, the SCA court ruling overturning that earlier ruling, is that now there has to be an interim provincial committee set in place there. So what are we going to see of the branches? Could we see branches coming out in support? And would that make any difference at all to the ANC-NEC decision?
Yeah, no, most definitely. I can't see that the branches will have to decide about an issue like a step aside. But coming back to the Free State issue, I mean, for the very first time, we've seen open defiance of the so-called leadership of Ace Magashule. Although he's left, we've seen some branches in the Free State marching to the House and actually demanding that the SG should resign. And that is a positive sign for many within the African National Congress, because Ace Magashule has become the so-called untouchable. Actually, today, the most divisive persona within the ANC is definitely the Secretary General. I don't think of any other time where you've got such a key member of an organization sowing so much chaos, but he's using the Constitution to his own interpretation of the African National Congress interpretation to his own advantage. And the question has always been, but why is there not a firm stance against what he is doing? And it's only this week that we have seen. And one very important thing also about the NEC meetings is that it's now for the second time or the third time, if I'm not missing the point here, where instead of the SG making the announcement after the NEC meeting, but you will find that it's always President Cyril Ramaphosa, and that also tells you something about the trust relationship between the President and the Secretary General, and that is not good for an organization such as the African National Congress.
Let's focus in on the ANC in the Free State. So Sam Mashinini, who was the provincial chair, that whole structure has been disbanded with this SCA ruling. Of course, it could be appealed, I understand, but it creates this environment of total uncertainty, surely. How pivotal is that to any attempt that Ace Magashule might make to defy the step-aside rule?
No, I think this actually weakens his position. Remember, somebody like Ace Magashule has been doing what he's doing because he is privy to the day-to-day running of the African National Congress. He had an advantage because he can determine some of the outcomes of decisions at branch level. Even if a decision has been made, at the end of the day, this whole issue of gatekeeping and the deeply rooted patronage network had a huge influence in some of the decisions that he had been making. And I definitely believe that the judgment, whether they're still going to appeal or not, but at the moment, it definitely weakens the support that Magashule would have got from the Free State, which has always been behind their former premier, their former chairperson.
Thank you very much for chatting to us this evening. Professor Setolego Matebesi, Associate Professor in Public Law at the University of the Free State.